Now, Levi Plank's daughter, Stella, and Murray's son, Lewis Franklin, got married. They married on Christmas Day in Pensacola, and they had 3 children. The oldest was a son, and he was named Lewis Frank. The father was Lewis Franklin, and then his son was called Lewis Frank, shortened, and also changed the spelling of Lewis. Don't know why. And then they had 2 daughters as well. Lewis Frank Cawthon Sr., as he was, because he ended up with a son, my dad, named Lewis Frank Cawthon Jr. But Lewis Frank Cawthon Sr., he went to Florida, to the university, but when he moved back here, he played professional baseball. He played in the minor leagues, and he played with Clinton Richburg, who ended up being his brother-in-law, marrying his Lewis's sister. But the Richburg name is pretty popular and known because they lived in Okaloosa County or in Crestview, and Lance Richburg was a Major League Baseball player, pretty famous, and that's how we get our name for the Walton Braves, because he played for the Braves. They were not the Atlanta Braves, I believe. They were the Boston Braves. And he played for them, and so for a local boy, because at that time, Okaloosa County was not really in existence. It was part of Walton County. And so Lewis Frank Cawthon Sr. was born, went to college, came back, played ball, married a lady from Geneva. Her name was Willie Jeanette Cawthon. They are my grandparents. And they had 4 children. They had 1 son named Lewis Frank Cawthon Jr. and 3 daughters. Now, Lewis Frank Cawthon Jr. was born on Easter, and I always am interested to think he also died on Easter, which I think is kind of strange, but, maybe that meant something. But Lewis Frank Cawthon Jr. married his high school sweetheart. They went to school here at Walton, and her name was Geraldine Edge. And they married, and for the first time, the male lineage ends. Out of 8 generations, when Lewis Frank and Geraldine had their child, it was me, a daughter, named Jennifer. So we have to now change to the female side. But Lewis Frank served in World War II. He was in the Navy. Then he got his degree, and he became a science teacher. He loved science, he loved teaching. But his wife ended up contracting polio during the epidemic, and they had to move to Houston, Texas for her to live in an iron lung and try to survive, which she did very well. And they moved back here, and with the help of Marcia Dimes, they were able to have an air conditioning system in their home that would help her to breathe. So Marcia Dimes was very instrumental in my family's life back in the day. And so he didn't return to teaching. He became a banker because he was offered a position at not Cawthon State Bank, but First National Bank. And so he would always laugh at people who would complain about Cawthon State Bank to him, not knowing he was a Cawthon too, But anyway, he worked there, and he enjoyed banking, and he had been to FSU and graduated for teaching, but then he went to LSU in order to get his banking degree. And so he did that. He served on many boards, and he was a school board member and gave of his time that way. Then it comes to me, and I lived here all my life, and I know this history, and DeFuniak has always just been home. So I went to FSU, following, I guess, in my father's footsteps, as did my daughter, and I became a teacher, an English teacher. And so I lived here, and I taught for 35 years, both at Walton High, some other schools, and at the First Christian Academy, where I served as principal. But DeFuniak, no matter what, has been home to me. The little small town offers so much that bigger cities don't offer. So I love living here. And I married Henry Wesley Wilkerson, and we had, again, now with a female, 2 daughters. And then my daughter has a daughter. So we've all gone to the female. So there are no more Cawthons in existence, having lost that name with my father. To me, it's been very important to feel the heritage of DeFuniak Springs. I feel I have a connection to it in a lot of ways because my family was very instrumental, particularly those 9 sons and the positions that they played when it coincided with the town developing. And so I have pictures of the streets of DeFuniak when they were just dirt roads and circle drives, just dirt roads. And here they were making a town from nothing but wilderness, I guess you would say. So from moving from the north end of the county into this area with the spring, as the lake was called, and they lived here, and they tried to provide a downtown and provide. And so by having a banker, and by having the ranchers, by having a dentist, having the photographer to record it, we, the future generations, are kind of blessed to have all of that. And particularly with T. Hope, because he took pictures all over. And I even have some that are from the beach area. So there's a lot of heritage here, and for me, being a part of that, a recipient of it, is pretty important, and I feel a deep connection here. In this photo, you see Lake DeFuniak, and you can see that it's mostly dirt and a few buildings over in the distance. But the lady standing on the right side was Lena, and she was the wife of T. Hope. He had 2 wives. She died, and then he had another wife, but she's his first wife. And so Lena Henry was her name, and he used her a lot for his photography. So she's standing at the lake's edge, all dressed up. You can't really tell it in that picture. All right, this photo, which has been colored, is a scene from, as they call it, the Chautauqua grounds, because we were having the Chautauqua in those days. And that again is Lena, T. Hope Cawthon's wife. And so he used her sitting there, standing, I can't really tell, it was like a bench, in the lake yard as well. All right, this photo is of Alpine Park, which was down South 2nd Street. It is a photo that was captured during the Chautauqua, where people would come from the train, go to the Chautauqua building for events, but also to have free time. They would be, through horse and buggy, taken down to this park where there was a spring, and it kind of formed another lake, and they could picnic during part of the time. And you see they're, dressed in the style of the day. This was done in 1898, and this is when a fire destroyed DeFuniak. And in the first part of this photo, you see the Cawthon store, as they called it, or the big store, and other buildings. But then here is after the fire, and they're all gone. And this was taken in by T. Hope Cawthon, and it was from 1898. Okay, this is a deed signed by Murray Allen Cawthon, who was the firstborn here, and it's from Lake DeFuniak Land Company, and it's his purchase of some land, and I'm not sure which, but that was done in 1884. The 2 here are from this newspaper called The Breeze. We had the Herald and the Breeze, and then later in modern times it became combined, but this is from The Breeze, and it has different Cawthon things, and that's why I had it framed, different little stories in there. So that's from a paper, and at top it says F. Cawthon. That's how it was delivered. Just F. Cawthon, and they knew that meant Dr. Frank. The front page is about Easter time because it's Easter wishes, and I think it's interesting. They're talking about the 5th Sunday meeting of the Graves Association, which we have had into modern times. St. Agatha's Church had an article, the Baptist Church had an article, the Universalist Church. But right here, besides an advertisement for Cawthon State Bank, it's talking about Miss Mary Jane Cawthon. That's her obituary. And she was the mother of those 10, the dentist, the banker, all of those people that helped to create DeFuniak in those days. And that was in 1922. that she passed away. What I have here is a reproduction of the lineage, all done in the earlier days by a group of Cawthon family members. My father was pretty interested in this. It doesn't start with the man from England. It starts here with the original William Cawthon, who came here, was born in Georgia, went to South Carolina, and then of course the William Thomas, who moved to Georgia. And it has all of the history about them. Here's the William Jr. He's the one that had the 4 wives, and the 4 wives are listed here. And then all of this coming out from that, these are all his children, and then their descendants going down. So my line comes here and goes down through here with the gentleman Murray Andrew Allen. And then remember, he had 10 children, the ones that helped settle DeFuniak. And then from there, we don't carry it any farther, but others were. So it keeps going through the 11 generations, but it's not all recorded here because it's hard to put everybody down.